Shin Megami Tensei is, on one hand, equal parts forward-thinking, aggressively ambitious, and tactful in what it does, that I have a hard time believing it's from 1992. On the other, it's the biggest piece of shit I've ever played in my life. To play Shin Megami Tensei is to sit on the borders of wariness and bafflement without dunking your head in either pool. It's to tiptoe past tedium, frustration, arriving into a glaze of strangely hypnotic intrigue. Remember when I said that Dragon Quest V was a part of the evolutionary line of video games growing up? This is definitely one of those. Shin Megami Tensei is the fourth game in the Megami Tensei series, but it's the first Shin Megami Tensei game. And it's also the earliest one to have a fan translation, meaning I couldn't go back any further even if I wanted to, and well, I do, so get your lazy butts off those couches, fan translation community. Actually, I've heard that the reason they haven't translated those ROMs is because they can't figure out how to change the text, which is acceptable, I guess. I'm kidding, that fan translate, you guys do God's work. You do a great job. Keep it up. With Dragon Quest, it's inexcusable that it wasn't translated and officially released here. Enix still had a strong American branch that localized a lot of Super Nintendo games. The infrastructure was in place, they just never made it happen. With this game, I understand. One of the first things you see is Jesus on the cross. You're probably well aware of Nintendo's pearl-clutching philosophy of the early 90s. If SMT would have come out here, it would have just been cannon fodder. Nintendo would have been in court suggesting that Night Trap was too violent to ever appear on a Nintendo console. Meanwhile, looking like massive hypocrites as they harbor to work with religious warfare, naked women swimming in a lake, and realistic portrayals of Old Testament genocide. Shin Megami Tensei is a game where America nukes Japan. Again. God floods the earth. Again. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. I am Jason Graves. Never trust anyone who needs a haircut. And Shin Megami Tensei is a dungeon crawler, so you'll spend 99% of the playtime as a rat running through a maze. It takes place in a contemporary setting, which sets it apart from the chaff right off the bat. Stephen Hawking is inventing a way to instantly teleport from one place to another. He accidentally makes contact with the demonic realm. This results in these creatures making a portal to Earth and attacking the people of Tokyo. After that, shit goes from 0 to 60 real fast. Within a day, the USA is invading. A resistance group forms protesting the Japanese government. The Christian church uses demons to gain support and raise funds to build this big-ass mega-cathedral where God will come down from heaven to save humanity. And another religion springs up glorifying Lucifer in opposition. It starts out as a conflict with a lot of different parties vying for influence. After about 10% of the game, America nukes Japan, and you're teleported into the future 30 years. Presumably all governmental forces have been toppled in favor of local warlords running fragmented communities. The only two groups remaining are the Church and the Church of Satan. You need to decide which side you want to support, or if you'll just go rogue and kill everyone. You'll wrap your head around the concept, and the time skip results in a lot of great moments. When you first come out of the land between times, this homeless guy asks for some money. When you try to give him some, you learn that it's become worthless. The game makes you sit there while your currency indicator slowly counts all the way down to 0. Preceding that, you need to work your way through a dungeon that's a significant increase in difficulty. You're trapped inside without access to the overworld. There's one central save and heal spot. You keep going back and slowly make your way closer to the outside. When you're about to leave, the twosome standing in your way are the same demons who moments ago were generously healing and saving your progress. You need to kill your save point to escape. In general, the points at which you're allowed to save are spread so far apart, but this is the most egregious example. You're back on the overworld, but everything is destroyed. You're essentially in a new place. Without any direction, you're free to roam around, but it's been an hour since you last saved, so that's priority number 1. Have fun wandering into a building, only to be ambushed by demons 30 levels your senior. That happened to me. I was not impressed. I'm not a complete noob when it comes to the SMT series. I've beaten both Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Persona 5, and have dabbled in a few of the other games, so I knew going in that multiple endings were likely going to be on the table. Early on I got the sense that the game was trying to pull me in 2 different directions, between either supporting the Americans or the Japanese resistance force. It's cute that the American ambassador speaks in broken sentences, because he's a foreigner and wouldn't be conversing in his first language. It's a nice touch, but not a nice enough touch to prevent me from killing him. At the start, I made an earnest attempt to stay neutral, but I wasn't using an alignment guide, so at some point I became what is known as lawful. Once that started, I decided to lean into it. Staying neutral requires you to be twice as violent anyway. Law means that I sided with Jesus. There's talk of Adam, Eve, God floods the earth. There's a lot of stuff referencing the Bible. Let's look at the character of Yuriko. When you first see her, she's the woman bathing in a lake in your dream. Your first real-life interaction is a scenario when she's coordinating the public execution of the female protagonist. This was before the nuclear apocalypse, by the way, so the world was already going to shit, apparently. Early on, you meet an old man at the park who shows you a vision of the near future. Your mom warns you not to go forward, and then you get your ass kicked by a boss. But when the premonition comes true, instead of your mom waiting outside, it's Yuriko. At the end of the game, she admits her motivations were that of envy for the female protagonist, because she gets to be with you and not her. But of course you guys can't be together, because the nakedness of thy mother shalt thou not uncover, she is thy mother. Leviticus 18:7. Even though the game has multiple endings, I looked it up and no, there is no path where Yuriko becomes your companion. When she reveals herself as a demon, it's that of Lilith. In Jewish folklore, Lilith was a being created from the same clay as Adam, being his first wife, as opposed to Eve, who was created from Adam, his rib to be precise, and would go on to mother humanity. Shin Megami Tensei uses the tropes of a dream. Everything dream-related happens at a breakneck pace. Within the first hour, there's the dream in bed and the old man at the park. Both dreams come true so fast that you might think that the rest of the game is going to be like that. It runs a real gambit. If all this crazy stuff happens so fast, what's going to happen later on? As soon as you get your feet wet and start to feel out these warring factions, Japan gets nuked and the whole game becomes trapped in a sticky, mobility-limiting goo. This game goes from 0 to 60 in no time at all, but then it kind of settles down and cruises at a speed of about 15. The day after you see your first demon, there's already a guy at the mall who has a whole room dedicated to fusing them together. It makes sense that this guy would exist after the time skip, but you can go here right away. These things just appeared. Hell, a lot of the NPCs at this stage are dedicated to stating that you're crazy for thinking that these things even exist. Meanwhile, you can't walk to the fucking store without being assaulted by a dozen of them. There's denial, and then there's just willful ignorance. This game is a court scene of sorts. Honestly, it's not worth mentioning other than the irony that it happens in the Chaos Group's headquarters, and I got sentenced for being too law-aligned. It's easy to imagine that the 3 main characters represent the same guy who has taken different paths through life. Or at least it could if, unlike me, you played the game correctly and stayed neutral. You ever wonder what it's like to be someone else? Like, you'll see a Reddit post or something on social media or out in public that's like a tiny window into some completely different reality. Like, yeah, that guy with the tattoos on his face, it's just something my mind can't comprehend, I guess. I think about that sometimes, like, instead of getting really into old video games, like, what if I became a crack addict? What if I became really good at basket weaving? What if I, like, really got into lifting weights? I'm not saying that I would, like, want to be a crack addict, I'm just, maybe I should think of some more uplifting examples. Like, what if I got good grades, I went to a great school, and I made something of myself? Then maybe I wouldn't be digging this ditch right now. There are people on YouTube who talk about anything and everything you could possibly think of. What if I were one of those people who only talked about Cartoon Network? What if instead of resenting digging ditches, I got really into digging ditches, like so far that I just became the guy who digs all that cool stuff. But, you know, reality sets in, and I've never done crack. I've never done a drug in my life, really. That guy with the tattoos isn't me. Those Reddit posts, that mindset isn't me. It's not going to be. I haven't watched Cartoon Network since 2007, and digging ditches? Well, actually, digging ditches isn't so bad once you get used to it. I'm not somebody else. I'm me. It's 12:27 a.m. and I'm talking about a Super Nintendo game. So Shin Megami Tensei can evoke feelings. It has stuff to chew on. Yet there are so many facts that keep this game from being what I'd call good. This was cheaply made, and it shows. There are about 5 songs. They're all short, and you'll hear them repeated ad nauseum. Everything feels empty. You can never see any of the NPCs until you're already talking to them. Super late game dungeons will reuse the same walls. They'll look exactly the same as the places you go in the opening minutes. Worst of all, it's padded to hell. It is the highest random encounter rate I've ever seen in any video game. Here's a small sample. A simple little area. It requires 18 steps to get through. Let's count just how many random encounters I get into. Here's the first one. And with this game, it's almost never one battle. Once you kill a group of enemies, most of the time another one shows up before you're allowed to move again. So this first random battle has me fighting 4 different groups of enemies. So that's 1 encounter and 4 mobs, I'll call them. That's 5 random encounters, resulting in 12 enemy mobs in 18 steps. 27.7 repeating percent, a little more than 1 in 4. Imagine that over the course of an entire game. And when I say an entire game, I mean an entire game. Shin Megami Tensei does not believe in safe zones. You're not safe in the world map. You're not safe in the makeshift towns. I can literally count on one hand the number of segments where there are no random encounters. 1. When you first start the game and before the demons invade. This lasts anywhere between 1 minute and 15, depending if you explore your surroundings or not. 2. When you first reach Shinjuku in the post-apocalypse. 3. The first time you go to Ropponagi. And 4. After you beat the final boss, the game makes you walk through one final hallway, which thankfully doesn't have anything. The incentive structure is fucked in 2 of these instances. I mentioned that Shinjuku and Ropponagi don't have random battles. Well, that's only because the local warlords are keeping the demons away from their towns. It doesn't matter what side you're aligned with, you need to kill both of them to advance through the game. And once you do, guess what comes back to these areas? Did you even help the people living here? Because you certainly didn't help yourself by eliminating the only 2 safe areas left in the whole city. In Ropponagi, I know they're not really people, they're just reanimated corpses. Fighting things is busted, which is a major problem in a game with so many of them. Status effects are too good. In a lot of RPGs, using these moves is a waste of time, but here, they have the opposite problem. And this goes both ways. Sure, it hurts when an enemy uses a status effect on you, but what gets really game-breaking is when you use it on them. Every boss fight is won, easily might I add, by having your fastest character cast any status effect. It doesn't even matter which one it is. Freeze, shock, charm, sleep, they all work roughly 99.9% of the time, and they completely cripple your opponent for the duration of the turn, sometimes longer. So your fastest character does that, and then your other ones attack. It's one dominant strategy, and it's so laughably easy to figure out. It's in such plain sight that it's hard to imagine anyone playtesting this game and thinking it was okay. This results in a game that is much more annoying than it is difficult. Fighting enemies isn't a question of if I will win, but how long will it take me to win. Maybe the challenge is supposed to come in from remembering what the spells are supposed to do. The translators used the same spell names the series would later adopt when the official localizations were made, and I don't have a problem with that in theory. The only problem, none of the spells have descriptions. I've played some Shin Megami Tensei games before, so I remembered the basics. I know what Bufa is, but what the fuck is Makajama, or Marin Kai, or Rakamadar? There are some dead ends both narratively and mechanically. For example, the mag system, short for magnetite, never comes into play. The idea is that using demons costs you mag every time you take a step, so you need to be careful when you're using them. But I never came anywhere close to running out, and I was using demons basically 100% of the time. I didn't even know what it was supposed to do until about 10 hours in I got curious and looked it up online. Most of the spells you'll never end up using. Could they have helped me? Maybe. But I'll never know, because what ends up happening is you figure out what the heal spell is, you figure out how to inflict status ailments, and because there's one dominant strategy, there's never any need to experiment further. Early on, the game teases this antique store owner, who's apparently selling some shady stuff, but it never pays off. What was he selling? What was his story? You can leave a comment if you know what his story is and I just missed it, but I don't think it pays off. Shin Megami Tensei is also prone to glitches. Some insignificant, like a word randomly appearing where part of the GUI should be. The game randomly switched my alignment once. When you're on the overworld map, what direction your character icon is spinning is supposed to represent the way that you're aligned. Clockwise is law, counterclockwise is chaos. In my very lawful playthrough, I noticed my icon appeared to be spinning rapidly counterclockwise, and I thought,
wow, I'm spinning clockwise so fast, it almost looks like it's going the other direction.
Then I triggered a cutscene where the Chaos Hero acted like I was his best friend and that I hadn't been tricked by the Law faction. Which is funny because I was literally only going there because Jesus told me to. This glitch was short-lived because after I saved and reloaded, my alignment went back to normal. Here's my character build. Pretty good, right? I'm not very intelligent, but I have maximum strength and are moderately fast. I'm level 46 and have 484 maximum hit points, so I'm feeling pretty good. Here I am fighting this normal enemy, everything looks fine, it's going well. Notice I still have 484 maximum hit points. Oh sweet, I leveled up. Wait a second, level 41? My maximum HP is only 392, and my strength isn't maxed out anymore? That's right, this game stole 6 levels from me. And no, reloading the save didn't help. I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. Not just because I was pre-committed to beating it for YouTube. I couldn't quit. For all its faults, the game had its hooks in me. Sometimes forcing myself to play through a game for this channel feels like a chore, but for some reason, Shin Megami Tensei wasn't one of those. It is a great concept, catching, conversing with, and fusing demons, mapping out new areas. It's a hypnotic loop. I would recommend this game if you're a big picture, macro-visioned individual. But if you derive the value of a game from the minute-to-minute experience, then this game will make you want to tear the hair out of your skull, one strand at a time. So instead of doing that, just find something else to play. But if you can allow yourself to be led by a carrot on a stick through a yard full of rakes to eat some delicious apple pie, then Shin Megami Tensei will be something you'll never forget. I know I won't. Let's end this video with the Chaos Hero's last words after you kill him. Was this all just a dream? A nightmare? No. It was a good dream. Goodbye.